Hello, everybody. Pleasure to be joining you in your homes. I myself am joining you from the Ascari King Street location. I'm perched in what we appropriately refer to as the cellar in the restaurant. So I thought that would be a lovely spot to talk to you guys about the wines we're going to be enjoying for tonight. First off, just a little bit of housekeeping. You may have gotten this note, but I just want to make sure you are all starting off by getting your pasta water on the boil. That is definitely what any good Nona would make sure you're doing before you get started cooking an authentic Italian meal. So that bodes for us manja cakes as well. But not yet salt the water. As it's going to be slowly coming to a boil, it will reduce a bit, and that can affect seasoning. So Chef Eimear will definitely be on that when we get to that portion. We get the water boiling. And the other thing I would like to recommend is to take the second wine of the night, red, and pop that in the fridge while we get started on the first part of the evening. And I'll speak to you a little bit about that in a moment. Thank you, Chantel, again for the introduction for all of us. Again, just a little bit about myself. I have the fortune of being the wine director for Ascari for a little while now. Started off as general manager at the Queen Street location before taking over the wine program for all the locations. And this Queen Street location especially has an incredible history of focusing on really interesting and really off the beaten path wines, as well as very legendary classics as well. Often with an old world focus, old world always referring to European wines, the stuff before we went out to South America and North America and Australia and whatnot. Yeah, it's an absolute honor to be the one who gets to command the wines for these locations. Like I said, I am here right now at our King Street location, and funny enough, we have obviously turned our dining rooms into a couple of the finest wine boutiques that you can come across in the city. So after tonight, I encourage you to come down either at our Leslieville location or here down on King Street, where you can take a look at some of the really cool wines that we have exclusive or very rare access to. And we'd be happy to talk to you about the kind of fun stuff we have on hand for you. So we hopefully have our water on the boil. Hopefully pop that red wine in the fridge. And let me just come back to that idea of temperature. Often we think about the rules of wine that, whites we drink ice cold and reds we drink at quote unquote room temperature. The important thing to think about that is that room temperature back in the heyday of wines, hundreds of years ago, was the room temperature of a castle. Really what you're looking for is cellar temperature for your reds. That can be anywhere between 16 to 18 degrees. But you know what? Most of us don't have a wine cellar. If you do, fully for you, that's great. Perfect way to store your wines. If you don't, though, taking your red and popping it in the fridge for 15, 20, even 25 minutes before you open it up is a great way to just pull the temperature down a few degrees from however hot it is in your room. And you will find that most red wines will behave a lot better and will be a lot more expressive and a lot more in balance if they're at that correct temperature. So it will take a little while for it to get there, but that will give us an opportunity to get started on the first wine. Some of you may have already popped it open, and I think that's excellent, in good form. I approve of that. But we've got our white wine, which also is happy to sit out of the fridge now that you've got it open. Whites often, if they come up from fridge temperature just a little bit, they will show their aromatics a lot more expressively. It can be a lot more enjoyable to drink. So, that being said, I have an empty glass, and let's pop open this wine while I talk about what we are going to be drinking tonight. So, the first one of the night is a white wine. It's from Italy, from the north of Italy, in the Lombardy region. This is just central from the Piemonte area, which is northwest Italy, very mountainous, the land of things like Barolo and Barbaresco, Moscato d'Asti, those kind of things. Just next door, across the Po River, is the region called Oltrepo Pavesi. Oltrepo actually means over the Po River, so that's basically what this region gets its name from. And we're going to be drinking a gorgeous crisp white that is actually made from 100% red grapes. You might see on the label that it says Pinot Nero, which is just Italian for Pinot Noir, which is French for Pinot Noir. The thing a lot of people don't know about red wines in general is that 99% of the color in a red wine is coming from the skins of the grapes only. The inside juice and flesh of a red grape, except for a couple of rare varieties, is basically no different than the inside of a white grape. It is a clear or very yellow colored juice. And red wines become red wines because when they press them, they let all those skins macerate with the juice they pressed out of it, imparting the color, the tannins, the structure onto a red wine. And you can do a very short skin contact with reds, making a lighter style. And really short skin contact, you can get a nice pink rosé. Or in this case, you can do virtually zero skin contact. As soon as they're pressing it, it's free running right out of the vessel that they are pressing the grapes in. And that juice gets zero skin contact and makes for an incredible white wine out of red grapes. In France, in Champagne, this is really common. It's referred to as a Blanc de Noir. Most people don't necessarily know that Champagnes are predominantly made of Pinot Noir, another grape called Pinot Meunier, which is red as well, and Chardonnay. And generally speaking, unless it's a rosé, you are drinking some kind of a Blanc de Noir. So I've got this wine open. This is a real cork. You can sniff the cork, but that doesn't tell you everything. What you want to do, though, is just nose the top of the bottle. You smell anything that reminds you of wet cardboard, moldy basement, anything like that, that's actually what you're looking for to know if a wine is corked. Now, if you're doing this in a restaurant, which may be a while before we're doing it again, but if you're doing this in a restaurant, you're tasting the wine, you're not actually tasting for if you like the wine. What you're tasting for is whether or not you're just detecting any faults in the wine. So you want to be a real pro when you're in the restaurant. The sommelier is going to pour you a little splash of the wine that they just opened. Give a nose to it, smell it, and if you give the nod to the waiter or the sommelier that it's smelling correct, there's no faults, there's no musty, moldy smell, then you get to look like you definitely know what you're doing. So I've got this open. First whiff, it is very clean, very fresh, floral, and fragrant. So I'm going to pour a little splash into the glass. So if you all take a look at what you have in your glass, this is one of the clearest, lightest, palest colors wine that I've ever come across, and it's made purely from red grapes. It almost has a watery kind of color to it, just a hint of greenish yellow. This is always the first thing you want to do when you're opening a new wine is take a look at it, really look at the color, and if you're swirling it around, how is it kind of glomming onto the glass? Where's the texture? Give it a nose. You're going to get light white flowers, a little bit of stone fruit, definitely some citrus zest, and a saline, almost sea breeze kind of minerality to it. Give it a swirl. Give your nose again, and then take a little taste. This is the fun part. A note on slurping. It's real. It is actually a way to aerate the wine. You get much more aromatics up into your nasal cavity, and that helps you taste the wine a lot better. So we've chosen this wine to go with the first dish of the night, which we'll start making quite soon. And gives me a perfect opportunity to talk about some methodologies of pairing wines with food. The sort of typical way to approach things is to look for a complementary pairing. So whatever dish you're making, if it is tart and tangy, you want to find a wine that is also tart and tangy, so those things marry together. But there's another strategy that is often even more exciting, and is to go for a contrast pairing. So you can take a rich, creamy, full-bodied dish and pair it with a brighter, lighter, crisper wine, and you end up with this lovely contrast. And sometimes you get notes out of the food and notes out of the wine that you otherwise would not sense. The two become better than the sum of their parts. That's the strategy we're approaching for this one. The meal we're going to be putting together, the first dish is beautiful, rich, creamy burrata. We have butter poached leeks, and of course, a nice little truffle oil as well. All of those are these mouth-coating, rich, buttery flavors that are going to coat your palate. And if you take a sip of the wine after you have your first mouthful of this beautiful burrata, you're going to see that this freshens and lightens it up. These lovely saline, floral characteristics are going to lift and contrast some of those heavier, more intense flavors, and you should get a very gorgeous pairing. I'm going to pour a glass for John as well, since he's over on the other side of the restaurant, and he's going to get started on showing you how to make this beautiful burrata dish. John.
All right. Thanks, Blair. Awesome descriptions of the wine, and welcome everybody from Toronto Life to Ascari King Street here, where Blair and I are located. Really happy to be with you guys for the first time ever tonight, and in this new medium of welcoming guests without actually having you in the room. It's very odd, but we're excited to take part. So first thing we're gonna do is take a look at all the ingredients you need for the appetizer dish. So the camera is now panned down, and I'm gonna show you here. The first thing is the burrata. So in your container, you should have 2 pieces of cheese. Okay, so that will be, that should have been out hopefully at room temperature. You don't want that ice cold. You want that a little bit warmed up to room temp. It's gonna eat a lot better that way. Then you've got your butter poached leeks. So we've already taken the young leeks from this season. The beautiful thing about this dish is that it's all about springtime. And then you've got the butter here that we've separated. That's the butter we cook the leeks in. So it's going to be extremely flavorful, well-seasoned, and really good. And then to the left of that is a lemon pan grattato. So that is a breadcrumb that's been blitzed and buzzed with dried lemon zest. And then we have our black truffle vinaigrette, and then some Maldon salt to finish, and our pea shoots here, which is going to be topping our salad. So the first thing we're going to do is warm the leeks. So what we want for the leeks is them to be soft and supple and a little bit above room temperature. So I'm going to scoop some of the butter into a medium pot here, and we're going to get that butter onto a stove. And what I want you to do is just to put the butter on kind of low to medium heat. You don't want to cook the butter or make it brown. All you want to do is bring it up to a temperature where it's just about to start to foam. All right, so you're not going to see it because it's a bit far, but we're going to put this on the stove. Okay, and while we're doing that, we can prepare the rest of the stuff. So what you want to do is put your 2 pieces of cheese into a mixing bowl so that we can dress them in the vinaigrette. So you can take a little bit of this vinaigrette, not all of it, about half of it. And if anyone wants me to slow down, just let me know to slow down. I'm not going to go very quickly. We're just going to put a little bit of the vinaigrette on top of that so we can get it dressed up. And you're just going to kind of give it a toss very gently. You don't want to break the burrata, just so it gets seasoned with the vinaigrette. Okay? All right, great. Okay, and now that your butter should be melting and kind of getting soft, we're going to take the leeks and we're going to put them. See, we've got our melted butter here. We're going to put the leeks right into there. And we're just going to let them warm through on the bottom of that pot. You're not going to put it back on the stove because you don't want to cook the leeks, okay? You're just going to let it sit there in the hot butter and let it come to temperature. Let it warm through. Okay, so I'm just going to put that to the side for now while we do that. And then I'm going to talk about this dish a little bit while that's warming up. So this dish has been on the menu for a number of years, only for a month or 2 at a time. I really, really love young spring leeks. I think it's one of the most beautiful things about springtime. And they're a perfect pairing with both black truffle. Leek and black truffle is a classic pairing in both northern Italy and southern France, and the richness and luxuriousness of burrata. So if you haven't eaten burrata before, I know it's on a lot of Italian menus and restaurants now, but it's basically a fresh mozzarella that's been stretched and stuffed with fresh cream and little chopped up bits of mozzarella. That inside bit is called stracciatella, and that is a beautiful like sumptuous texture. It's amazing. Someone asked how much butter. All the butter that was in that container. Put all that butter in the pan. Like you want to use all the butter to warm your leeks. Okay. So now your leeks should just be sitting in that hot, warm butter, just kind of coming to a little bit above room temperature. So there's no more chill in them, and they've absorbed all that cooking liquid. So the basis of this dish is very simple. It's poached leeks with a piece of burrata on top, and then the crunchiness and brightness and lemons of the lemon zest with the richness of the cheese. So I want to talk about the pairing a little bit. I love this glass of wine.
Can I interrupt real quick? Can you just
sure.
Can you do a quick review, because I'm running around, at least I don't know if everybody else is, but
Sure.
quickly run through it again so I know where we're at.
Start from the start. Sure. So what you should have done right now is have your butter into a pot on the stove, just getting warm on kind of medium to low heat. Once that butter is melted, you're going to drop your leeks into the butter and take it off the heat and let them sit. And that's it. That's all we're doing for now. Once they come to temperature in about a minute or so, we're going to bring that to the plate. And then the cheese you could have in a small bowl with about a tablespoon of the vinaigrette that we provided, and that should just be dressing your cheese right now. And that's all we've done so far. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Just chime in. No problem. So the wine. We had this wine on the list for a few months now, and I love that it's both mineral and acidic, and like Blair said, citrus and floral and fragrant, but it has a richness on the palate because it's a Pinot Nero that really complements all the richness on the plate here. It really holds up to it. I think it's beautiful. And again, it's Northern Italian white wine with a lot of Northern Italian ingredients here, except for the burrata, of course, which is from Puglia, but the rest of the components here from Northern Italy. So now that our leeks are on the plate, Michael, now their leeks are on the plate, we're gonna in the pot rather warm. We're gonna put them on the plate. You can just put your finger on there, make sure that they're not cold anymore, and you'll see like the butter is gonna look really beautiful and glazy and glossy. You're dressing those nice leeks with that. I think it's gonna be really nice. The leeks can be a little delicate when you're cooked them like this, but really, really lovely. So what we're gonna do is just put about 4 pieces of leek on each plate. So I have 2, just like you guys at home. And that's the base. And then I would put a couple drops of the butter, just a little bit, not a lot. See there? It's okay if it looks a little bit greasy or too much fatty. This is a luxurious dish. This is not a dish low on fat. And you're gonna take your burrata and just place it right on top of the leeks. Just like that. Okay, then what I do is I just take my hands and crack the cheese and open it up a little bit to reveal that beautiful stracciatella, which is the inside filling. Okay, everyone can see that. I'll put a little closer so you can see. Okay, so you got your cheese. It's a little bit ripped open. It's on top of the leeks. Next, we're going to take our Maldon salt. You saw we gave you a little bit of flaked sea salt, and you're just going to put a few little pinches of Maldon salt right on top of the cheese, because this cheese, unlike aged cheeses, actually isn't made with very much salt, so it does require a good amount of seasoning. Next, we're going to take our breadcrumbs, and you're going to generously just be pinching the breadcrumbs between your 2 fingers, top the cheese with the breadcrumbs. Okay. Then we'll grab our vinaigrette that we've had left over with a spoon, and we're just going to drizzle the vinaigrette around the plate, around the leeks, so that when you dig into this cheese, you can grab a little bit of that vinaigrette with every bite. Okay, and then we have one more step to do here, which is super simple. The pea shoots that we had cut for you inside this thing, you're going to take a nice, generous little bundle and place them right on top of your cheese. The pea shoots are crunchy and sweet and just coming up right now this time of year with the hot sun and the big rains, all the first things of spring coming out of the ground. And here we have our burrata with butter poached leeks, black truffle vinaigrette, and lemon pangrattato. Okay, everyone see that? Okay, put it back up. Let me know if everyone's got any questions. Basically, other than warming the leeks, you're just putting it all together on the plate.
And if you need him to repeat anything, please let us know.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I just had a question.
Sure.
I missed what you said when you said that burrata, different from like aged cheese, was when you were seasoning it with the salt. What was that?
Yeah, so I find burrata takes a lot more salt, and you need to actually season it as like a raw ingredient. Most cheese is properly salted and And because of it's aged and loses a lot of its moisture, the salt that you make the cheese with is really concentrated. Because burrata is such a fresh cheese, like a mozzarella, for example, it's just pulled. It's like heated. The curd is heated. It's pulled. It's filled with the cream and stracciatella, and there's very little natural salt. So you do need to season it pretty generously. I just saw a note, should we be using all the pangrattato? I don't think so. Like I think we gave you probably twice as much as you need. I would save it. That keeps forever. Put that in your pantry. Use that to garnish on top of a nice piece of sautéed fish. It's beautiful on top of fish. It's beautiful on top of a braised meat. Just adds a little texture and bright lemony brightness. Okay, everyone. I think everyone should get their fork and dig in and get a piece of the leek and a piece of the cheese and a little bit of the vinaigrette, a little bit of pea shoots. I'm going to do the same.
It looks so
yeah.
good. Please enjoy, everybody. Blair, I have a question for you. So other than the amazing wines that you've paired with tonight's meal, would you have any other recommendations that you would suggest that would go very well? I know you mentioned that there are a couple that you would mention, but is there anything that you can share with us in regards to other wines that we can pair with the meal?
Yeah, certainly. You could also go for a wine that is less about bracing acidity and more about aromatics, more about an oily, sort of rich texture. We can do an oak-aged white. We probably know that best from Chardonnay, especially in California, but the French do it too, and all around the world. A toasty, buttery Chardonnay is generally that way because it's been barrel fermented in an oak barrel. And that imparts a completely different character on the grape juice than it would be if you had a completely unoaked Chardonnay. So Chardonnay on its own could be extremely lithe and bright and lemony and floral. And as soon as you let it ferment in an oak barrel, the oak is actually toasted like with open flame, and that changes the nature of the texture of the wine. It becomes much more buttery. You end up with flavors of toasted popcorn sometimes, little almondy things happening in there too. Vanilla can come from that oak barrel. And if you go in that route, then rather than contrasting and freshening your palate with something that's bright, you're kind of doubling down on the richness, which can be just as rewarding depending on the wine and the food. And you end up with this complementary, matching, almost amplifying nature of all those flavor and aromatic sensations.
That's great. Thank you. Thanks for sharing. And John, I have a question for you. So do you work with local farmers right now? Are there currently, some suppliers that you're helping, support during these times, or that you're always working with that, you can share with us and let us know who you're currently supporting that are local?
100%. So we, the local farmer crop is actually just coming into the market now. All the fresh vegetables we were getting like 2-3 weeks ago was probably not local, but yeah, right now you can get fresh greens, fresh salads already, pea shoots, and certain things are getting ready right away. We use one of our suppliers is called 100 Kilometer Foods. They're a farmer broker. So we've been using them since their inception, 10, 12 years ago. And they give us access to a number of different farmers that we can support. And we also are able to select what product we want from each farmer when we get our deliveries a couple times a week. We do use some farmers direct. We use the New Farm in Creemore. We use a couple others in Simcoe County. Sometimes we use those direct, but in general, we use a broker in between because the farmers are too busy to make deliveries themselves. So we've been doing that for many, many years, ever since we had Table 17 on Queen Street East from 2008. So those relationships have been like the cornerstone of the quality of our menu. The quality of our menu comes directly from the product. And without those relationships, we're nothing. So we're very grateful for those guys. It's been a tough season for them getting their help across the border to usually help them out. And then also knowing what to plant, knowing is there going to be demand for their product. It's very trying times indeed, not just for us being forced to be closed to the public and not really having like a business to speak of at the moment. But for the farmers who we purchase from, their market evaporated immediately as well. So it's a big challenge. Everyone's trying to shift and figure out a way to move forward. And I think what we may see come July and August is a lot less product available due to farmers being really tentative earlier in the season as to what they should be planting.
Right. Oh, that makes complete sense. So how have you been holding up since COVID hit? I'm sure it has.
You know,
just like
we've
right?
been good. I mean, it's been a challenge, that's for sure. But, you know, as soon as it hit, we turned around and said, okay, what do we need to do? Let's get to work. Let's figure out where we need to set our mind to change our tack, and how do we stay engaged with our customer base, stay engaged with our community, stay engaged with our staff. And, you know, we've luckily been able to bring back about 20% of our staff so far doing events like this. We're making meals for Community Food Centers Canada, about 2,000 meals a week for the underprivileged, as well as 250 meals a week for frontline workers at St. Michael's Hospital. So those initiatives have been very useful in terms of bringing staff back, keeping them connected with us. And then, of course, looking to the future. Personally, the biggest challenge is not having daycare and having the little one at home, having to work and juggle that with your partner. Everyone's trying to work and take care of their kids. I'm sure some of the people on the call tonight have the same challenges. So yeah, we're very grateful for opportunities like this to get back in the kitchen, do some cooking, and connect with people properly.
Great. No, this is so much fun. Thank you. We appreciate it.
For sure.
I think we have a few from Kim. Oh, it's a comment. It says 100 Kilometer Farm sells direct now. We use it all the time. They're awesome.
They are great. They've been delivering to a few neighborhoods around the city for sure. So we highly recommend getting on that list. That's
so great. Oh, it says, will you be providing us with a recipe?
Yeah, we can provide recipes for all of this because, of course, you didn't see this from beginning to end in terms of the prep to make the vinaigrette and poach the leeks. We're happy to provide the recipes for both dishes from top to bottom. So you can replicate it at home for sure.
Great. I hope everyone's enjoying it.
Including these incredible breadcrumbs. Like, what is that? It's so good.
Awesome. I'm glad everyone's enjoying it. Okay.
Did we get Eimear on the line? Is she there?
I'm here. Just want to confirm that everyone can hear me properly.
Yeah, we hear you.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, well, when you're ready to go, we'll start going on this carbonara.
Perfect. I think we should get going, Eimear.
Great, yeah. Amazing. Okay, guys.
Unless everyone's still eating their, with Chantal, let's make sure everyone's not still eating their burrata.
Yeah, if people are hoovering it.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think you're good to get started.
I'm good? Okay, amazing. Right, so we're just going to go through the ingredients first really slowly. So first, we have our onions here, which you have, and then we have our guanciale. So guanciale
I'm just gonna stand
is our pig cheek. And then we have both of our cheeses. So we have our pecorino romano, which is going to be our garnish cheese. And then we have our grano padano. Along with that, we have our beautiful house-made pasta. So that's our bucatini. And then we have our little containers of parsley, pepper, and extra virgin olive oil. And our eggs on the side. So the extra virgin olive oil we might use and we might not use. And I'll get more into detail about that now. So
I don't think
pasta water.
Can you hang on a sec? Your video's not working.
For sure.
We can't see anybody.
Yeah, the camera's not on.
Oh, weird. I see her.
Yeah, everyone can see my kitchen.
Nope.
So you might have to scroll through a few of the guests at the top to see Eimear's screen.
Oh yeah, so I'm having difficulty, guys. So I am on my laptop and my phone. So
Got it.
the voice is coming from somewhere else. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, that's gallery view, and then pin your video, and everybody can see you.
That's the one. Got it.
Because your voice was coming from a blank screen because it's from a separate device. So
yeah, correct. Yeah. Can everyone hear me now and see me?
Yep.
Okay, we're good to go.
Yeah? Amazing. Okay, so I just turned up my water because I'm going to bring it to hard boil here while we start to cook our guanciale. So first, I have my medium-sized frying pan here. I'm going to turn this on to medium heat. So I have it on about 6. So I'm going to add my guanciale here. So to an actual cold pan, you don't have to wait for it to heat up. So the process we're doing now is called rendering. So we're going to render out all of our fat from our guanciale. So as I mentioned, when I was going through the ingredients, the guanciale is pig cheek. And we cure that in salt and then we smoke it in-house. So we're going to get this going for about 4 to 5 minutes. Now, once that fat starts to extract out of the guanciale, some of the pieces are really fatty and others aren't. So this is where our extra virgin olive oil will come in. So if you find that it's not really as fatty as you want it to, because we need enough fat in there to cook our onions, we'll just add it in towards the end of this process. Now we're going to let this cook for 4 minutes, and I'm going to switch over to Blair to give us some tasting notes for the carbonara.
Blair, before you start, it's Kat here. Dustin, can you just explain how to make sure everyone can see Eimear? We're getting some feedback that she can't be seen.
Oh.
Go to gallery view.
Yeah, so you scroll through the videos at the top until you see her name, Eimear de la Rosa, and then you just click on the 3 dots and click pin video. I'll put the instructions in the chat too.
Thank you.
Sorry for the confusion, guys.
We're just drinking more wine. It's okay.
Oh, that's fine.
Good.
That's fine.
Perfect.
I wish I wasn't at home and I was at King Street drinking with Blair and John right now. Here we are.
Chef Eimear, before I go, just for the people who just saw you or just getting you on camera,
Yeah.
just one line, explain what you've done with the pig cheek in your cold
Sure.
pan.
Yeah, absolutely. So can everyone, just want to confirm, everyone can see me now? We're good to go?
Give me 1 second to confirm that.
Perfect.
We don't want anyone to miss out.
We're good? Amazing.
Okay, one line and then back to Blair.
Okay. So our guanciale is going here in our cold pan. We have it on medium heat and we're just going to slowly render out the fat. Okay, and while we do this is going to take about 4 to 5 minutes. While Blair is chatting, if you find that a piece of your guanciale is starting to get really crispy and nice on the side, you can give the pan a little bit of a shake. Blair will keep talking and then we'll come back and we'll keep going, okay?
All right. Hope everybody enjoyed the first round. I've gone ahead and popped the cork on the second wine. If you guys want to grab the red out of the fridge, if you did put it in there, and open it up if you haven't already, and spoil the surprise. I will give this bottle a quick sniff if you're just opening it fresh. Make sure that there's no sense of like a wet basement kind of smell, and this smells absolutely correct. I'm going to pour myself a little splash, and I'll let you know what we're drinking. So we are in Tuscany, one of the most popular regions of Italy for winemaking. It is home to some of the most prestigious wines, Brunello di Montalcino, the Super Tuscans, that's a whole seminar unto itself. But what we are drinking is from a region called Barco Real di Carmignano. The fun thing about getting to know Italian wines is that they don't taste easy, to be honest. Maybe one of the hardest ones to figure out of France, Germany, and the rest of the world. Old world European wines are typically named after the region and not the grape that goes in it. And then some of those regions happen to overlap with other regions. But depending on what rules you're going by and what grapes you're using in there, then those regions can be one thing or another, but coming from land that is top. So Barco Real di Carmignano is exactly one of those regions. It's part of Tuscany. It's not all of Tuscany, but it overlaps with certain general Chianti regions, even some more specific, smaller Chianti Classico or Chianti Colicinese, those kind of regions. So it's a bit more generalized than the most specific quadrants of Tuscany, but it lets Italian producers utilize some grapes that are not necessarily allowed if you were to call it something like a Chianti. So in this case, the grape that is definitely the king of Tuscany in general is Sangiovese. It is a part of virtually every wine that is coming out of that region, and it is one of the most noble, ageable, and versatile grapes that comes out of Italy. The Sangiovese in this case is only 75% of the wine, and they are allowed to blend in a little bit of a few other things. So this wine also has 15% Cabernet Sauvignon, which is a name that we probably recognize. It's actually an old French grape, and it's grown throughout the world. There's a little bit of Cabernet Franc, which is another lesser-known Cabernet grape, and then there's a little bit of Canaiolo, which is actually yet another traditional Tuscan grape, generally used just for blending. What happens from Sangiovese when you make a wine 100% out of that grape is you often have the very classic aspect of bright cherry or even sort of a dark cherry, earthen flavors and aromatics, leather, like an old, well-worn leather is often an aromatic and flavor profile that you get from Sangiovese. And you definitely have some of that in this wine. Sangiovese often typically has a very nice bright acidity. Acidity in a red or a white. What happens when you blend in some Cabernet Sauvignon and Cabernet Franc and a little bit of Canaiolo is you actually build a little complexity, a little bit more of a different profile of the wine. You end up with a little bit of the typical black currant, cassis, forest floor elements from something like Cabernet Sauvignon, a bit of a vegetal aspect from the Cabernet Franc, and still more acidity from the Canaiolo. So you end up with a richer experience when you deal with blend. And Tuscany has a very impressive different array of these kind of things. So pour yourself a glass. Hopefully the time in the fridge pulled it just a few degrees down from too warm, and take a look at the color. It's fairly dark. I would say that this has some ruby garnet aspects, also a little bit more of a darker purple from the stealth quality of the color. And then give it a little bit
up until the next
smell. So you definitely get some cherry, some black cherry, a little bit of that leather, that earth. What we're doing with this wine is veering more into the category of a complementary pairing rather than the dish that we're going to be making is a carbonara, which is rich with the egg and the cheese. It also has this pronounced smoky guanciale, fat pepperiness. Different things on that front. You could do, like we were talking before in the Q&A, a rich, toasty oaked white, which would complement this dish as well. But what we're zeroing in on here is those smoky, peppery notes, which is what you're going to get out of this red. The thing that ends up happening as well is you get a little contrast note on this wine too, because there is a reasonably good level of acidity, which is going to help cut through the rich, the egg yolk and cheese and fattiness that is going to really coat your palate when you get to tasting this. Give it a swirl, give it a sniff, give it a taste, and then I'm going to throw back to Eimear as we're probably getting to the point where our guanciale is in the right spot. Cheers.
Thank you. And I know that we had a quick question about, I know, Kat, you just answered, as long as it's not burning, but they asked if we should turn the heat down. So they're saying there's a lot of fat in the pan. Should we now turn the heat down? Back to Eimear.
No audio. We can't hear you.
Hear me now?
Yep. Thank you.
Perfect. So lots of fat in here. So guanciale has rendered down perfectly. So you can see nice and crispy and brown. So what we're going to do now is we're actually going to remove this guanciale from the pan because we don't want it to overcook. Now, if you feel like your guanciale didn't render off enough fat, you can put in a little bit of extra virgin olive oil. Now, the other thing that we can do, if you feel like you have a little bit too much fat, you can remove some. So I'm pretty happy with the amount of fat content in my pan here. So now we're going to add in our onions and get them caramelized. So straight into the pan. And we're going to season this straight away with salt. I like to use kosher salt for seasoning. Don't be scared of the salt, but don't go crazy. Very easy to add more. It's very hard to take it out. So what we're going to do here is we're going to get a really, really deep caramelization on the onion. Now, the reason for that is the flavor. When we start to make our carbonara, we layer each flavor so that the end result is the most scrumptious carbonara you've probably ever had. So in with the onions, I'm going to put a small bit of black pepper as well. Now, if you haven't already turned on your oven, just pop it on now to about 200 degrees Fahrenheit. The only reason for that is we're going to pop our bowls in. Now, hot food means hot plates, and especially for pasta, I always find if you put pasta in a cold bowl, all that sauce just sticks to the bowl and it doesn't stay creamy. So that's nicely getting a good color on it. Want to check in that everyone's good and on the same page. Now, while they caramelize, this is when we can season our pasta water. The reason I don't season pasta water at the beginning of this cooking process is because the water is going to reduce, then it's going to concentrate the flavor and actually intensify the salt. So I add it now when I'm a little bit more ready for it. So I add in 1 tablespoon at a time. So 1 tablespoon in, and then this is where my tasting spoon starts to come in to practice. So just dip your spoon into the water. Mine's not really seasoned enough, so I'm going to add another tablespoon. Make sure to taste that again. And keep tasting until we have it absolutely perfect. Yep. So it should taste like seawater.
The last thing.
The pasta thing.
Like the time goes in the water, right?
Yeah, so the water, the salt is in the water.
Yeah.
So that's just boiling away now. And then we're getting there with our onions. If you're feeling adventurous and you want to learn how to flip your pan, this is a good practice to start with our onions right now. So if you want to learn how to flip, give it a bit of a wiggle so everything's loose in the pan, and then you're just going to push away and pull back, and that's how you're going to get your flip. Other than that, you can stir it with your tongs, a spoon, or just give it a little twirl. So everyone's pasta water should be boiling and seasoned at this point. Our guanciale is resting on the side, and you can tell it is perfectly crispy and good after that.
I just wanted to chime in here and tell everyone, I think a couple of comments were like, oh my God, it's so much fat. Don't be scared of the amount of fat in this pasta. When that emulsifies with the water and the cheese, that's what makes the sauce. That's what's going to coat your noodle. You're not adding anything else. So don't be scared of all that beautiful pork fat that rendered off the guanciale. Super important that you don't remove too much of that. That's what makes this dish great.
Absolutely. Thank you, John. So our onions are getting nice and brown here. So
that
this is
sexy.
The point. Thank you. So just so everyone knows, John taught me how to make this carbonara about 3 years ago. So it's even more scary when your boss is watching you make it in front of 30 people.
I'm sure you do better than me now.
So my onions are nice and caramelized. We're going to drop our pasta in. If you're scared of it overcooking because your stove has gotten too hot, just move it to the side. We can come back to it. So I'm going to pop in my fresh bucatini pasta. So make sure it is on a super, super high boil. And we're going to pop that in. Okay. Everyone's good? Has their pasta in? Now, to this, we have our onions on, medium heat again, medium to low heat if you're a little bit worried. And then I'm going to add in back my guanciale. So there's 2 ways we can do the next step. So the next step is deglazing. And a lot of people deglaze pasta sauces with white wine, red wine, or a vinegar. But we actually deglaze this pasta with water. And the reason for that is we don't actually want to add in any acid or extra flavor. We just want to use the caramelization of the onions, the flavor of the guanciale fat to really, really lift this dish, along with, of course, beautiful black pepper in there as well. So I have my pasta pan, medium heat, guanciale and onions are in, seasoned with salt and black pepper. My pasta is going back here, and I'm just going to pull it slightly out of the water. And that's, you can kind of tell sometimes when it's fresh pasta, it might get a little bit stuck, so you just kind of want to help it along the way. This pasta generally takes about 2 to 3 minutes to cook. Now, some of you might get a little bit more al dente, or some of you might like a little bit overcooked. So we'll just take it slow so everyone kind of has a chance to do what they prefer. So
sure, and I'll chime in here for 1 second, just because someone made a comment to slow down a little bit as their water wasn't coming back to a boil that quickly.
Perfect.
So
Okay.
I'll just take this opportunity to say thank you, everybody, for bearing with us. We couldn't find our Irish translator tonight, so
Wow.
everyone's just gonna have to suffer through. I'm sure people, their Irish is good enough to understand you, so it's hopefully everyone's gonna do okay with that tonight.
Oh my God. This struggle I've gone through in the past 5 years in Canada, everyone, no one could even imagine. Okay, so pasta. So whenever I'm cooking at Ascari, I'll always taste every single pasta sauce and noodle. I'll taste the pasta sauce at least 3 to 4 times to make sure the seasoning is perfect. And then when I'm tasting the pasta, now it doesn't matter if it's not done yet, don't worry. We're just gonna pull one up, just like so. And what I normally do is pop it in my hand, normally just discard a little bit of it, and then I'll taste it. Well seasoned, it should taste like something. It should not taste bland. It should be a little bit salty, but not overkill. So my pasta is about 1 to 2 minutes out, maybe about 1 minute out. Has a little bit of a bite in it. So I'm going to take it a little bit further. So I'm putting my pan, I just took my pan off to the side just because it was getting a little bit too hot. So I have it back on, my onions, guanciale on medium heat, and now we're going to deglaze. So we can deglaze, take a little ladle, some pasta water, and it should bubble. It'll kind of bubble like crazy. Ladle down.
The other reason why we use pasta water too is because it's got that beautiful starch that's all come off of the noodle now, and that starch helps to thicken the sauce and coat the noodle. It's like you're really doubling the use of the pasta here. So using pasta water to deglaze a pasta pan is very, very common in restaurants, very, very common in Italian cooking.
Okay, so I've actually turned off my heat now. I hope when everyone deglazed, it kind of bubbled and went a little bit crazy. So this part is really important because we want to have a little bit of water in this pan. We do not want it to be super fatty. So the way to tell that is by the size of your bubbles. If your bubbles are large, it means your water content is high. If your bubbles are really, really, really small, it means your fat content is super high. So if your fat content is high and your bubbles are really small, just add a little bit more water. And the reason for that is also, as well as our starchy, beautiful pasta water, it's also going to help melt the cheese. If I had no water in this and tried to emulsify cheese into it, it would just get more and more fatty, but this will actually help it get creamy. So this is the consistency of my pan. So just a little bit runny. I can tell my bubbles are nice and big, so I have some water content in there. And then I'm just gonna pull up my pasta. Now you can do one of two things. You can strain your pasta, or you can do what I'm about to do, and I'm just gonna pull it out of the water with the tongs, or a pasta spoon works perfectly well as well, okay? So pasta goes in. This is really exciting because we're getting to the end and you get to eat it. So pasta's in. So all of that goodness in there. I'm gonna add my parsley now. So parsley goes in. You always add herbs at the end. And the reason for that is herbs are so fresh and they add so much herbaceousness to a dish. You want to put it in last so you don't lose any of that flavor, or else, especially if you're using a soft herb like parsley, mint, cilantro, it's going to go black if you add it too soon. So you want to add it just at the last minute, just to keep it really, really fresh. So moving my pasta around, you can see it's pretty loose. We're going to get our grana padano now. Now, traditionally, pecorino romano goes inside a carbonara, because it is from Rome and pecorino romano comes from there, but we actually use grana because it actually melts better. So you can do two things again. You can be adventurous or not adventurous here. So I'm going to sprinkle my grana.
Eimear, everyone wants you to just slow down a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Just stir that pasta in the pan a little bit. Let people get their pasta into the pan.
Okay, so we'll just
wait
recap
for
to
a
make sure
cue.
everyone's good. So our water's in our pan with our guanciale and our onions. When you're done that, you're gonna add in your pasta into the pan. Okay, and just give a little bit of a wiggle to make sure it's not sticking or anything. Now, my heat is currently off. So after I've added in my pasta, my parsley went in. Don't have to use all the parsley, we might garnish some at the end. And then my grana went in. So my grana padano is just sitting on top of my pasta right now with my parsley and my sauce. Now, because mine's sitting here for a minute, it is getting a little bit dry. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add in some pasta water just to loosen it out a bit. I've always found that pasta water, or just water itself, is always the key to fixing any sauce when it comes to Italian cooking. So is everyone good?
Yep, we're good to go.
Fantastic. Okay, so pasta's in, parsley's in, grana padano's in. You can get a tongue or your pasta spoon and do this. Just give it a nice stir.
Did you add all of the cheese?
No, I just added a bit of it. You don't have to add all of it now. You can. If you're a massive cheese lover, go for it. But I added in, I'll probably add a little bit more, about 2 good handfuls. Okay, so now we're going to toss. Now, as I said, if you want to be adventurous, push back. Or we can use our tongs and just stir like so. And you can see nice cheesy strings. And that's the basis of our carbonara. Is everyone ready if we start to plate?
Yeah, put that right up to the camera, Eimear, so everyone can see how saucy that looks. Yeah.
Yeah, so you can see how creamy it is.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, so it's really important, John drilled this into my head many years ago, that when you do, especially our pastas at Ascari, none of the sauce actually runs off the pasta. It all sticks to it, which is really important because then it eats very well. So after that, plates are nice and warm in the oven. Just carefully remove them. And we're going to start to plate. Now for plating, you will need your 2 bowls. You will need your pecorino romano for garnish, eggs, which are our beautiful Conestoga omega-3 eggs, which will, when you crack in, you'll see the change in color of your dish. Bit of black pepper and also our parsley to finish off. Ooh, that I just dropped. Okay.
Yes, someone just asked, what about the eggs? As Eimear plates, I'll explain. We put the egg yolk on the top of the pasta at the end, so you mix it in your plate while your pasta's hot. That way you never curdle the egg. Traditionally, for carbonara, the egg is tossed in the pasta before plating. We deconstruct a little bit and don't do that, and it allows that gooey yolk to be coating your noodle right in front of you when it hits your table.
Amazing. So next is plating, and of course this is 2 portions. I'm just going to do one while you have fun. So I've dropped it in the middle of the plate or the bowl, and I just turned my wrist slightly, and that's going to give us a little bit of height. Layer it up. I always put the guanciale on top, and then we're going to make a little divot or a little hole just in the top. That's where our egg yolk is going to live. Now, before I start with the egg yolk, I'm going to do my cheese first. Presentation is, of course, perfect, and I want to make sure there's no cheese bits on top of my egg yolk. I want to make sure that's really popping. So, generously, your pecorino romano. So pecorino romano is a sheep's cheese, and it's a hard cheese, and it's perfect for pasta and especially for carbonara. So, for this far, we have our cheese on top and all plated, and then I'm going to crack my eggs. So I just have a little 250, maybe your one from your guanciale you can use if you've no plans to use the egg white. So I always just tap it on my worktop, and then you'll see the crack, pull apart, and then you can go in between the shells, but I always feel like it sometimes breaks. So I'm just going to do it the way my mother taught me, which is in my hands. And then the egg yolk goes on top. And I'm just going to rinse my hands, guys, sorry. So our egg yolk is on top, and now we're going to sprinkle our parsley. And then our final garnish is black pepper. And that's it.
That's it. So we've
Bucatini alla
got,
carbonara.
now a few people need to catch up. Feel free to ask some questions now about the last couple stages, and Eimear will fill you in.
For sure.
I also just wrote in, we can tell you're a chef. You just pulled the plates out, and I'm sure they're still pretty hot. You know, your hands are very thick skin, right?
Yeah, a few years of practice under my belt.
Right.
How's everyone's carbonara's looking?
We're separating the eggs now.
Amazing.
Okay, great. Now, once you get that egg yolk on there and you've garnished the yolk with black pepper and you put your cheese and parsley around, dig in, stir it around, toss it in your bowl and get it into your mouth. That's the best part.
I love that the egg yolk becomes part of the sauce.
Yeah. So it's such a great thing with this carbonara as well, because one of the most difficult, oh sorry, you're looking at my floor in my kitchen. The most difficult thing for me with this carbonara was the layering of the flavors, and so many things that go into it are salty. So the guanciale, of course, we render it on house, so that's salty. Then we're seasoning our onions. Grana Padano is salty, Pecorino Romano is salty, and then of course our pasta is seasoned. But the egg yolk actually takes away from that, so it takes away a bit of the seasoning. So when you get to the point of garnishing, kind of want to make sure your flavors are kind of matching and your seasonings matching. Well, I think I'm going to start to dig in.
Eimear's going to dig in. I'm just going to say that, Eimear, that was awesome. I definitely could not have done it as well as you. So fantastic.
I don't know about that now.
The student eclipses the teacher 100% there. And Blair, why don't we talk about how this wine pairing now is going to go? Like, talk about the egg yolk and the sumptuousness and the richness of this dish.
Yeah. So as you can see, the critical aspects of doing a carbonara like we do at Ascari, it's emulsifying and building those flavors, all that richness kind of like building on itself. And then you finish it off by spreading that egg yolk and tossing it through the pasta, which just gives it that final touch of absolutely rich, gorgeous, sumptuous pasta. And what's underlying all of that is that pork fat, the smokiness from the smoked guanciale, and that black pepper, which is an absolutely key part of a carbonara. John, tell me if I'm correct in this, but the whole name of the carbonara is from the coal miners who were fueling the fire with the coal, and they would cook their lunch on these coal-covered shovels. They'd be on top of the fire. They'd be cooking, their pasta on that. And it's basically bacon and eggs on pasta. It's essentially what it is.
Exactly. No, totally. It's a working man's pasta from the region like around Rome, where there was traditionally lots of mines and lots of physical labor happening. So 100%, this is not a fancy pasta. This is absolutely a working man's and woman's pasta now.
And the flecks of coal off their shovels would be what kind of speckles the pasta, but pepper is the absolute perfect stand-in for that visual element, and that biting, aromatic, spicy pepper flavor.
100%.
Aromatics is what kind of pierces through all the richness of that. That's essentially what we're shooting for with this wine to do as well, is that you have that like earthy leather pepper bite that kind of matches in with that smoky guanciale and the black pepper, and then the natural aspect of the Sangiovese grape that has a good acidic structure in the background is that it helps kind of flesh out that richness, cut through it a bit, refresh your palate, and complement those smoky and porky, delicious flavors.
Totally. I just want to mention that we're going to send out the recipes for both these dishes for everyone to have in detail from top to bottom. So don't worry about that. Hopefully you were able to make it through the demo and cook alongside us in real time and get to a result that was really, really tasty. Chantal, are there any questions out there that we need to address?
Right now, it's just amazing comments. So there's one that I love. It says, quick mention to Eimear, our first experience at Ascari. She came and greeted us with fresh truffle on our pasta. We were so excited. We ordered it for another round. More fresh truffle and conversation resulted in her bringing us a container of oil with truffle.
Oh my God.
Amazing.
On the bar, table 36, I remember it.
Yeah, Chef Eimear's truffle oil. So she's like, it's so great to see you again. So this is from Mike Lynette.
Oh my God. It's so good to have you on, guys.
Amazing.
So amazing. Oh my gosh.
So glad to reconnect everyone. Of course, you know, truffle has such strong and amazing flavor. So that must be an unreal experience. And I'm glad that we can reconnect you both.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
Awesome.
A tear to my eye. I miss everyone so much.
I know, you can tell how much we miss the customers. I mean,
Yeah.
I just like to say that I'm so proud of our team, that like people like Blair and Eimear and the rest of our crew, both from Queen Street, King Street, and then Gardalas. I mean, this is why we're in the business, because we have people like this who just love connecting person to person. It's why we go to work every day. And this is such a special thing to be able to do it even on camera. It means a ton.
Cheers to that.
Yeah,
Cheers to that.
cheers to that,
Raise our
guys.
glass. Eimear, you should have an Irish stout there somewhere. No, there we go. Cheers.
Well,
Not a James.
it's never really that far away.
Ah, there we go. How did I know? The Jameson was close by. Very good. Very good.
Never too far away.
Amazing. I'm glad you didn't disappoint us.
So if
True
anyone
Irish.
has any other questions, we'll connect you with the Ascari team. I'm sure we'll be able to answer any additional questions you may have. We've also recorded this entire event, so we'll be sharing that with everyone here post-event within the next couple of weeks. And then we thank you so much to the Ascari team. You were so amazing. I can't wait till we all, you know, can reconnect and have a meal together. But right now, I think this was amazing. And thank you everybody for joining us tonight, and enjoy your meal if there's any left. I'm sure it's gone already. And cheers to everybody, and have a great weekend, everyone.
Cheers, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a lovely weekend.
Thank you. You
Have a
too.
good night. Enjoy your dinner, folks.